Alright guys, Raw Wrestler here, and I am back today with my WrestleMania 37 Night 2 review. This was a long show. I think I probably got a few things wrong in my review yesterday of Night 1, where I said that the pre-show was 2 hours, by the way, which is one thing I just thought. I don't think it actually was. I think it was just an hour. But in this country, the pre-show starts at 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, the pre-show starts at 12 o'clock, meaning that the actual show starts at 1. So I was completely wrong in my thinking that it was 10 to 12, the pre-show, and then the main show starts at 12. That would have been nicer, because it meant I would have to have been up as late. But I guess in the end, this show actually, to be fair, did end before like, just past the hour of full for me. So, you know, it was about 3 hours and 20 minutes in length or something like that. But yeah, guys, this is going to be my review of Mania Night 2. I just wanted to talk about the length first, for some reason. Again, this is going to be fairly unscripted, fairly spontaneous. These are just my initial thoughts coming off the show. I was going to review the show last night, but it was late. I was tired. I'd come off 2 Mania shows and 2 takeovers. I'm very lucky that this is my time off work. So I just decided not to. I decided I'd come back to it today, and I've had a bit more time to think about the matches and finishes and stuff. Overall, I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm gonna leave it as a story of how I feel about the show as we go through it. First match on the before the first match on the show, we have Captain Hulk coming out, or Captain Hook, or Hulk Hogan was a good name. I heard someone say. I think it was Brian Zayn. And Titus O'Neil come out as pirates. We also had, I tell you what, we had the package from last year, the really corny Tampa Bay Pirates package for Mania last year. We had that this year, and it was awful. It was still awful. And they came out, Titus and Hulk Hogan, and they did the same thing they did on the previous night. They were useless hosts. Bayley was on this show again, which I didn't talk about in my Night 1 review. Bayley was on Night 1. Far more than Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil. She should have been the host. She was far more entertaining as well. And she was on this night too, and she was entertaining on this night too. But no, and then we moved into the first match on the show. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, and Randy Orton in a wrestling match. Right, okay. I need to take a deep breath before I say this. This feud, 4 months, it's been going pretty much, probably a bit longer, maybe back to just about November. This feud, to me, is one of the worst things I have seen from WWE in my time of being a wrestling fan, which is over 16 years. It's horrific. The burning of the dummy at TLC was not dark or scary or mysterious. It was hilarious. The black viscous fluid is absurd and stupid, and this feud has no place in modern day WWE. The Fiend as a character was one that I was accepting of when it first came in. Thought he had a fantastic debut against Balor at the SummerSlam 2 years ago, but since then I feel like he had the Seth Rollins thing at Hell in a Cell, and then he won the Universal Belt, which made no sense, because why would he want a belt? And then Goldberg beat him, and everyone was angry, and then he killed Cena, which people are very mixed on. And then he became a normal person, and then the Braun Strowman stuff, and then the Randy Orton stuff. Essentially, I think what I'm trying to say is that The Fiend, as an experiment to me, before I even talk about this match, and whether or not The Fiend should continue or whatever, The Fiend as an experiment to me has failed. Bray Wyatt has had 5 feuds, I think, as The Fiend. Rollins, Bryan, Strowman, Cena, Orton, basically the 5 feuds. He had the feud with The Miz, which was god-awful, when he was Universal Champion, and it was Bray Wyatt, actually, not The Fiend, who wrestled him. But I think this experiment has failed. I think the character needs to be put to rest. And this match, to be honest, it just cemented that thought process. I didn't know how low, and this is just so you're aware of how I feel about the feud, so I'm being completely transparent. I didn't know how low this feud could get, and I thought that the burning of Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, or the dummy, basically, I thought that was the lowest it could get. And at WrestleMania, in the opening match on the show, the babyface Killer Clown Fiend and Randy Orton had a 5-minute match after Bray came out of a Jack in the Box. I mean, his entrance was actually the thing I was really looking forward to, because I thought, oh, you know, big arena, it's dark outside, and they waited till it did get dark, which was clever. You know, it's dark outside, there's so much they can do. So much they can do, and his entrance won't be affected like Undertaker's was back at WrestleMania 31, where he, ironically, did face Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt's entrance was affected in that show too, to be honest, because it was still light in Santa Clara. But no, you know, so the entrance was underwhelming to get us off to a bad start. It was a Jack in the Box, and Alexa skipped down to the ring. There's another silly part of this feud, the 9-year-old girl angle of Alexa Bliss. People think it's clever, and look at this, WWE fans will like anything. I am arguably a bigger pessimist than most wrestling fans, but that's because I've watched it for so long, and I can't imagine someone who's only watched Raw or Smackdown or just wrestling in general, or WWE, because I'm a wrestling fan, not a WWE fan. There is a difference. I can't imagine someone who's watched WWE for 2 years and just thinks this is the norm. Because even in my experience, like, I've had some low wrestling moments, like the late 2000s Raws of Cena and Orton, just swapping the title every month. And I've had, you know, the Rollins title reign where he lost every week, and Ray's title reign where he lost every week. I've had some low points in wrestling, but this feud, to me, is one of the lowest things. This is like darkest years TNA, darkest years WCW bad in my eyes. And so I want you to know how I feel about this feud before I talk about the match. Perhaps there'll be some subversion. Perhaps I'll switch and there'll be a plot twist here. That's unlikely though, because this match was, and I want to try not to swear, this match was crap. It lasted 5 minutes, as I said. It was so similar, in all seriousness. These two guys, Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton, I respect as workers. I really do. Randy Orton has been on the main roster now for about 18 years. And Bray Wyatt has been there for about, 7, 8. So they've both had a lot of exposure, a lot of experience. They've both worked different guys. They are both talented. Bray Wyatt has gotten much better since he debuted in 2013. And Randy Orton has always been really smooth and crisp, and I'm a fan of both, okay? But they're just not having good luck at WrestleMania. The last match they had at Mania at 33, I said, and I specifically remember this, I think I just said it was a bunch of moves. Like, it was just a bunch of moves that went move to move to move to move, and then to a finish. And this was a 5-minute match that was basically just that. So they did the Jack in the Box, and Alexa turned the crank on the Jack in the Box, which the announcers didn't name as a Jack in the Box, even though it was clearly a Jack in the Box. Just WWE commentary for you. And she turned the crank on the Jack in the Box, and I don't want to spend too much time on this match because it was awful. Bray popped out the Jack in the Box, and he jumped, and he did a crossbody. The babyface Bray Wyatt did a crossbody off the Jack in the Box. That was something to like. And then he hit a Uranagi, and he did the head snap, like the breaking neck thing, and then Randy apron DDT'd him, and he apron DDT'd him, and he apron DDT'd him. This is a guy that he had to burn to kill. Randy Orton's just doing moves, and it's just, Bray keeps getting up. And that's the thing with Bray Wyatt's, the Fiend, the gimmick. It's inconsistent with pain. It can get burnt at TLC and it can still run. Took an RKO and he's dead. Here, he was taking open TDTs. Sometimes he'd be down, sometimes he'd get up. He went for a running senton at one point and he missed it and sold it. Orton went for an RKO. Bray countered, got him in the Sister Abigail position, as he did. Sitting on top of the Jack in the Box was Alexa Bliss, and she was covered, her face was covered in the black fluid, whatever we're going to call it, and that distracted Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton turned him around, hit him with the RKO, and pinned him. And I actually laughed inside. I didn't laugh outside. This was honestly this will be the worst match of the year at the end of the year because it's such a high stakes match with a big feud, and it's not a good feud, but a big feud. Two experienced workers. Similar to their match again at 33, I thought this was just a bunch of moves that led to a crap finish. And what that means, I think, with Alexa Bliss seemingly turning heel. I thought she was Sister Abigail. I thought that was supposed to be the point. She's now Sister Abigail. Or she's controlling the Fiend. Maybe that's it. But no, what that means is we've got more Fiend. And I almost felt like the Fiend was always going to win this match, in my eyes, because it's his return match. He's the babyface. He did a high cross off the Jack in the Box. No, apparently not. This feud needs to die. And I need this gimmick to die. And I never want to think about this match. I never want to think about this feud again. And I want Bray Wyatt to... I want the Fiend character to die. Or I would like... I mean, this match, there was a way for that to happen. It's not going to happen because there's too many WWE fans who like the Fiend and the gimmick. And he came out in the mask. I tell you what, he came out in the good mask. He did not come out in the burnt to crisp Pizza the Hut mask, which he's been wearing for a few weeks. Thank God, because that mask was Pizza the Hut, basically, from Spaceballs. There's a mid-90s reference for you. But yeah, this match was awful. That was the only good thing, the fact that he came out in the mask. I've actually got a pot vinyl of the Fiend. I'm a fan of the look and the aesthetic, or I was a fan of the look and the aesthetic before they ruined any mystique the character had very quickly. And, you know, he's lasted for nearly 2 years, and I think it's now time to put that gimmick to rest. It's not The Undertaker. It's not creepy anymore. It just wastes my time, and it just wastes everybody's time. As far as rating this match, I'm going to say it's a dud. I'm going to say it's probably one of the worst opening matches in WrestleMania history. Even if you go back to the early years of WrestleMania, where there's like Tito Santana and the Executioner opening Mania 1, or other matches opening the show, I could not think of a worse match off the top of my head to open WrestleMania than this. And it was also a big feud. Yeah, but it was also the shortest match on the show, and that was somewhat grateful, because it was the shortest match on the show, and it was by far the worst, so that's a good thing. A dud. Awful. Absolutely awful. I don't want to talk about it again. Second match on the show was the... sorry, I'm just thinking. I'm looking at my Cartman plush. Or my Sheamus plush, actually. I might need him. Later. Sit him there. The second match on the show, sorry. This is all spontaneous. I didn't expect to be talking about that match for as long as I did. Second match on the show, WWE Women's Tag Team Titles match. It was Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax defending against Natalya and Tamina, who of course won the awful Tag Team Turmoil match on night one. And I do think that Tag Team Turmoil match was better than the Fiend match because it wasn't pushed in the same way that was. And I didn't give that match good. Yeah, this match was I won't talk about this for very long because this wasn't very good either. This was really sloppy, and when Tamina looks better than you in a match, it's not good. Nia Jax, how many years has she been on the main roster? 5, 6. She's still slow and sluggish, and I get it. There's some men that pull it off really well. We just saw Omos do that the night before. I said I was going to call him Omos. We saw Omos do that the night before and look really intimidating and powerful. Maybe it's just harder as a woman, but I've seen Awesome Kong do it. I've seen Aja Khan do it. They were both pretty good. So, yeah, Nia Jax just hasn't got much better. When it was Shayna Baszler and Natalya, it was alright. Like, there was some good chain wrestling between them, but just not brilliant. You know, Nia Jax power slammed Tamina on the outside, and essentially the whole match built to Tamina eventually hitting a power slam on Nia Jax, which she kind of did. She did. I'm being harsh. And then, you know, Shayna went for the... No. Shayna got a blind tag as Natalya drop-kicked Nia. She locked from the sharpshooter, but obviously Shayna had blind tagged, so Nia wasn't legal. Shayna climbed in the ring. This was after Tamina had been taken out. Shayna climbed in the ring and locked the Kirifuda clutch on Natalya, who tapped. This was pretty sloppy. I'm going to give it 1 3/4 stars. This was pretty sloppy. It wasn't brilliant. When it was Natalya and Shayna, as I said, it was okay. But anything else, it was... And it was also, like, the second longest match on the card. It's got, like, 15 minutes. And when you hear about my complaints for the next 4 matches, you'll see why this match could have lost 5 minutes. It could have lost even more than that. And it, frankly, might have been better. Because it was slow and sluggish and cumbersome. Yeah, this was 1 3/4 stars. This was the biggest match, I imagine, of Tamina's career. The biggest match of maybe Natalya's career, because she's never had quite a pushed spot on a WrestleMania card. So, yeah, not very good. Not very good at all. So Mania so far, we started with a dud and 1 3/4 stars. So not a great start to the show. But the third match picked up and helped us really get in the mood. But it does also bring up a glaring error, which I'll get to in a minute. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. There is another glaring issue as well. The fact that the stories on these Mania shows, both nights for the most part, were very boring or just silly. So the story between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn is that there's a conspiracy in WWE, and Sami Zayn tried to convince Kevin Owens, and Kevin Owens tried to accept that there was, and then he just believed there wasn't, and Sami Zayn was upset with him and called Logan Paul for some reason. We'll talk about Logan Paul in a minute, because he didn't need to be there. But he's also, and this is, God, the WWE fans are going to hate this, Logan Paul is arguably a bigger star than anyone on this show. If you walk down the street and say to a random person, who is Logan Paul, the chances are they're going to know who he is, because his boxing, his YouTube, he's a social media influencer, his all his scams, someone's going to know who he is. So, whereas with most of the people on this show, they're not going to have a clue. You know, the biggest star on this show might have been Reigns or Orton. So, or Edge or Bryan, I guess. But, yeah, that's... WWE fans are going to hate that I've said that. But no, Zayn and Owens, they had literally a match that went just under 10 minutes. And they tried so hard to have a great match. And in the end, I thought it was just below that. But they tried so hard, so I've got to give them a lot of credit. And the women tried hard in the match before it, to be honest. But they were just over encumbered too much with who was in the match, basically. Yeah, these guys tried so hard, Zayn and Owens, and Owens immediately out the gates hit a pop-up powerbomb on Zayn, and Zayn rolled out the ring, harkening back, I imagine, to some of their Ring of Honor battles. And then Zayn did a brainbuster on the apron, which looked pretty sick. He did a Michinoku driver in the ring, he hit a Blue Thunder Bomb. The Michinoku driver as well, Cole called a Blue Thunder Bomb and then was corrected. And then had a go at one of the other commentators. I think it was probably Byron for being corrected. Just know your moves. Just know who's wrestling. It's not... And all this time, by the way, Logan Paul is sitting at ringside pulling these hilarious facial expressions. And then, you know, Owens, he did a cannonball in the corner. He hit a frog splash. But in the end, you know, Zayn... Owens went for a running clothesline in the corner. Sami caught him. He gave him an exploder, gave him a half and half suplex. Owens kicked out. He gave him another exploder out of anger. Owens, I believe, went for a running clothesline in the corner. But Zayn ran behind him, gave him a haluva kick. Owens fell into Zayn's grasp, similar to the way he did against his chest, basically. Similar to the way he did at Battleground 2016, which JBL actually remembered. Kudos to JBL for remembering that fantastic battle, which was much better than this one. I shouldn't be too harsh on this one, because from this match, like there's an upturn in quality. But no, yeah, Zayn looked at him and he made a mistake because he put him up again and he went for another haluva kick. Owens super kicked him, super kicked him again, and then held him up, and he said, "I'm sorry," or something. I can't remember what quite he said. Gave him a stunner. 1, 2, 3. Kevin Owens beats Sami Zayn. It went, as I said, a bit less than 10 minutes, but it was really, really good for about 9.5 minutes. And the ending stuff, the callback to that 2016 Battleground match that I thought had been lost in time, because it's such a great match. I think I gave it 4 3/4 stars when it happened. It was a super match. The callback to that was awesome. The callbacks, I imagine, some of the Ring of Honor stuff. Sami actually hit the Brainbuster, like the Brainbuster in the ring at one point for a near fall. Yeah, they just tried really hard for like 10 minutes. So 3 3/4 stars. I think that Cesaro's match with this match here did more for me, I would say, than the Cesaro-Seth Rollins match. But I think that match overall was better. This match did more for me because of the story callbacks and seeing Sami finally hit a Brainbuster in the ring was cool. And seeing them have a single match at WrestleMania was very cool too. So I'm going to give it 3 3/4 stars. Very, very good match here. After the matchup, Logan Paul got in the ring to shake KO's hand. Zayn had a go at him. Logan Paul pushed him down, held up Owens' hand. Owens went to shake his hand and then gave him a stunner, which I would say got one of the biggest reactions on the whole show, except for maybe Edge's pyro. Yeah, it's got one of the biggest reactions on the show. Logan sold it more like a throw, though, which I've never seen someone sell a stunner. But what can you do? Logan's a lot bigger, probably, than Owens is, height-wise, so it's probably harder to sell it, or harder for Owens to do it and make it look really, really good. So, but it looked alright. I'm not having a go. Every time Logan was shown as well, like when he entered as well, massive boos. You know, and that's Logan Paul's paycheck. I can't imagine how much he's earned for this. I could not imagine. As I said, I think that he is arguably a bigger star, or is more well known than anyone in the show, and that doesn't mean I'm condemning him. I'm not a member of the Low Gang, but yeah, how far WWE has fallen sometimes, I think. But I don't want to criticise this too much because this was a very, very good match, as I said. 3 3/4 stars. And we moved right into another very, very good match. A match that actually surprised me with how good it was. It was, well, before the match, actually, we had RVD and Carly backstage. And then we had Matt Riddle. I refuse to call him Riddle. I refuse to just call him Riddle because it's silly. I remember when they dropped Rusev's name and Alexander Rusev, and just called him Rusev, or Neville when he just called him Neville. This is completely different because Alexander Rusev was just called Rusev, and that's okay actually for an evil Russian. Neville is fine because Neville's still like a name, like just calling him Neville's fine. Riddle's odd because Riddle isn't a name really; it's like a noun. So it's just odd, and I refuse to call him Riddle, so he's going to be Matt Riddle to me. So yeah, Carly and RVD were backstage, and Riddle, I can't believe I just did it. Matt Riddle comes up on his scooter and gives him some papers. Yes, we get it. He's a stoner. We get that RVD is also a stoner. They love it. They love it, don't they, WWE? They absolutely love humiliating Matt Riddle. But he's very happy with it, clearly. He does not give a single crap. Matt Riddle. Yeah, so Matt Riddle versus Sheamus for the United States title. I thought this was very good. Very, very good. Great fire out the gate from both men. Riddle with some great kicks. Sheamus at one point, as Riddle went for almost a buckshot lariat, he did the flip over the ropes. Sheamus caught him with a knee in midair. That was a super spot. Sheamus worked on him, hit an Irish Curse backbreaker. He went for a top rope ear raid crash, or the white noise, as he calls it. They slipped, unfortunately, but he did save it and just hit one, and then he just hit a white noise. Riddle hit a floating bro for a 2 count. That wasn't enough. What else did Riddle do? He locked in a rear naked choke at one point. As I said, a lot of Riddle's offense was about his MMA stuff. And in the end, a fantastic finish. Maybe the best finish on the show. Even though the finish to the main event was spectacular. What happened was Matt Riddle ducked the bro kick. He went for a Cabrada moonsault off the middle rope as he was flipping in midair. Sheamus caught him with a bro kick. I believe right under his chin or right in his mouth. Caught him right in his face. Pinned him 1, 2, 3. Super finish. Super finish. I'm going to give this match 4 stars. I thought this was great. I know I haven't spoken much about the moves as I may have done in the previous match, but it was just a fight. It was just a fight between two big, almost scary men in the way that Matt Riddle's this big MMA brawler. Sheamus is just like a Celtic brawler. It was great for 10 minutes. 10 minutes, really. 10 minutes and 53 seconds or something. It was great. So, nothing against this. Sheamus has been really good since his return. So I'm not too displeased that he won the US title. It's a nice consolation prize. Even though I just wish that Matt Riddle had held it for a bit longer and maybe had some good matches like he did with Ali. But yeah, great match. 4 stars. Really good. And at this point you can see that beginning of the show, that dud and the women's tag I've almost forgotten about them because of the quality of the Owens-Zayn match and the Sheamus match. And then the next match happens, and it brings up the issue I was going to talk about earlier. So it was the Nigerian drum fight between Apollo Crews, the Nigerian prince, which I'll talk about his gimmick in a minute, and Big E, who was played to the ring sung to the ring by Wale. That's good. That's good for Big E in his hometown. I bet that felt really good. This match went less than 7 minutes, and it brought up that issue. Essentially, these matches, that Riddle-Sheamus match, the Owens-Zayn match, this match, the next match as well, actually, which the Raw Women's title match, which we'll talk about after, they didn't get enough time. They were all, very good, which they were. They were all very good, but they just didn't get enough time. In this Nigerian drum fight, where they didn't actually use a single drum, it wasn't too special, to be honest. It was pretty good, but there wasn't anything that differentiated it from a traditional street fight. They used kendo sticks at the beginning. They used the steps at one point. Apollo threatened Big E. He had him laid out on the bottom steps, and he went to drop the big ones, the top ones, on him from the apron, and Big E moved. And then Big E gave him a Uranagi off the apron onto the steps. That was a good spot. And then, Apollo Crews fought back for a little bit. He went for they brought a table in the ring, and Apollo went for a frog splash through the table. He missed it. Big E picked him up, hit the big ending, and then Dabba Kato, who I can't remember what his new name is. I heard it on the Observer this morning. But no, Dabba Kato came out, or Babatunde, well, however you know him. Most people know him as Dabba Kato because he was on Raw Underground. Less than a year ago, mind. Dabba Kato came out, and nobody knew who he was for some reason. It's one of those WWE continuity errors. WWE has a history of continuity, like it exists. These characters, the Fiend is Bray Wyatt. Glenn Jacobs at one point or Kane was at one point a doctor, okay? And or a dentist even. And they've talked about that, I imagine, on TV. And they've admitted it. This was so odd and so jarring. Dabba Kato is also established. He's established as a big man. He's established as a man who hurts people. So it would make complete sense for you to say, oh, Dabba Kato's come out to help Apollo Crews. Not just say, who is that big man? Oh my god, he's so big. But yeah, Dabba Kato came out, he chokeslammed Big E, and then he put the Nigerian prince, Apollo Crews, on top of Big E. And Crews won the IC title. Now, I hate people losing in their hometown, but this feud, oh my god, if Apollo Crews didn't win the IC title, he's had 4 chances. If Crews didn't win the IC title, then this gimmick would be ruined. And I don't think that would be a good thing, because this Nigerian prince, the pissed off Nigerian prince, Apollo Crews, is a super gimmick. He's really good at it. The accent is jarring. And I wish that Uha Nation was his indie name. I don't know if he even used it on the indies, but I imagine he probably did. Yeah, I wish that they'd maybe just use his accent from entry, because his accent's actually really good. His accent's really good, and it adds credence to the gimmick. It's almost trying to play off, I think, the success of the Black Panther, the Chadwick Boseman Black Panther film, and kind of his role in the MCU, and obviously almost pay homage, because obviously he passed away last year. But yeah, I think this gimmick could go far, and thank goodness he won the belt, because if he didn't, he'd be dead in the water. I'm going to give the match 3 stars. because while it was good, like, and it was probably really pretty good, the finish soured me a little bit. The fact that, you know, Cruz didn't win the title on his own, which is okay, because he does need a muscle, really, or some sort of warriors to add his, to make his Nigerian heritage stick or something like that. But I just wish that they'd realised who Babatunde was, or Dabakato, whatever you want to call them. And I also wish that the match had got more time. And these 3 matches, 9 minutes, I think 20 or 10 minutes roughly for the first match. It was just under 11 minutes for the second, the Sheamus match, sorry, not the second match. And it's about 6 minutes, not even 7, for this match. And I just thought that woman's tag went 15, and it was so boring and so sloppy for the most part. I could have done without it, basically. And next match, to be fair, but yeah, I'm going to go 3 stars for that match. I thought it was good. I really want to go 3.25 for a few of the things they did, because I really like Apollo Crews, but I'm gonna leave it at 3. I'm gonna be objective, I think, and go with 3. Next match on the show, the Raw Women's title match. This one went just under 14 minutes. I'm going to say that first because I just want to get it out of the way. Again, I think that if this match had 2 or 3 minutes longer, almost, if it had the same amount of time as that Bianca Belair Sasha match, which I think went about 17 or 18, probably just under 18, this would have been, I think, an all-time classic. This was so slow-paced in comparison to essentially the 3 matches you've just seen, where it was just the Zayn Owens match was just move, especially on the necks. You had the Riddle Sheamus match, which was just a fight for 10 minutes. Then you had the Nigerian drum battle that didn't use a single drum, but was just a kind of street fight for 6 minutes. This was slower paced, which I think helped Rhea Ripley and Asuka it's helped Rhea Ripley a lot, I think. Rhea Ripley's awesome. I'm a big fan of Rhea Ripley. I think she comes off as a star. She was sung to the ring. She had her song Brutality sung to the ring, which I thought was a good rendition. A few people not fans. She felt like a star to me, and the match helped her in a long way to that goal as well. The feud of Asuka has been odd because I don't know who to root for. I think they're both tweeners in the way that they've been presented, and in this match, you know, Rhea had to escape some ring out counts at points, and there was never a point where either woman really used dirty tactics. So I think they're both tweeners, maybe similar to how Balor is in NXT. You know, they had a very good match, really. You know, Asuka focused a lot on her kicks, a lot of kicks to the chest and the head of Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley did her, like, I can't even explain it, like the choke, the forward throw thing, where she sends them face first into the mat. She did a electric chair kind of face first thing into the apron, which was also cool. In the end, though, and Asuka at one point, Asuka was great in this match. She kept transitioning from like armbar to the Asuka lock, armbar to the Asuka lock, and she went through the armbar several times. Really good. Rhea Ripley kept getting to the ropes and escaping. Super power bombs and stuff from Rhea Ripley. But in the end, Asuka hit a bunch of kicks on Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley asked for more. Asuka went for a running Shining Wizard, I imagine. Rhea Ripley ducked it, locked Asuka, hit the pump handle bomb, the Riptide. I'm going to call it, well, that's what it is called. Hit the Riptide, 1, 2, 3. Pinned her clean. Pinned her with one finisher. She looks great. She looks like a star. She felt like a star. She won the belt. She held up the belt. And the prophecy has come true. We have Bianca winning the Smackdown Women's title, and we have Rhea winning the Raw Women's title. Both off established women, Asuka and Sasha Banks, who have dominated the division. They've both had long title reigns. So I think this is great news. I think, you know, Rhea is, I think, about 27 now. I remember seeing her when she debuted, and she was just like a tall blonde, nothing too special about her. Now she's completely different. She's her own person. She's a superstar in my eyes. And this match was very good. I'm going to give it 3 3/4 stars. Very good for the time it got. Built well, had a good finish, had a clean finish, most importantly, and Rhea Ripley felt like an absolute star. Asuka loses nothing in defeat. Almost the perfect business is what I would say. That's a great way to say it. And And then the main event happened, and we had the triple threat match for the Universal title, which was Edge, Daniel Bryan, and Roman Reigns, the Universal Champion. Totally forgot. Before this, there was the final Titus O'Neil Hulk Hogan speech at the top of the ramp, which was interrupted by Bayley again. And then Bayley was met by the Bella Twins, who threw her down the ramp, and that was it. They danced with Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil, and that was it. They were the most pointless guest hosts, I would say, ever. You know, The Rock was important at 27. The New Day brought back the Hardy Boys at 33. Even Hogan was important at 30 because he had that big segment with Austin and The Rock at the beginning. Yeah, this was pointless. Poor Bayley. It's a shame she didn't get a match on this card. She could have actually very well fit into the Sasha-Bianca feud, and they could have really had a three-way and had a really great three-way, and I wouldn't swap that awesome singles match that Bianca and Sasha had because it was perfect, and I think Bianca winning would also be the right result in a three-way, but Bayley could have been on this show somewhere, I imagine. But no, the three-way main event for the Universal title, the champion Roman Reigns, the head of the table, the tribal chief, accompanied of course by his tribal council, or his special counsel, Paul Heyman and Jey Uso. They all came down to the ring wearing Samoan lei as well, against Daniel Bryan and the Royal Rumble winner, Edge. Now, I think that this story, like the promo package for before this match and on the pre-show for this match, was super. It looked at each individual man, it looked at what they had to gain, what they had lost, and who they were, basically. If you had never seen any of these men wrestle, you had no idea who they were, what the character was. That promo package clued you into who Daniel Bryan was, clued you into who Roman Reigns was, and clued you into who Edge was, and why they all needed the title. And this match was, frankly, it was the longest match on the show, and it probably should have been, and it was for the 20 plus minutes it had. It was super. I thought this was an excellent WrestleMania main event, one of the best main events of the past few years. What happened first was Jey Uso did a lot of interference, so Edge just executioned him onto the ramp, onto steel steps, and he was taken out. I think that was clever because it obviously gave you the impression that Jey Uso was been eliminated from the match. And then Edge and Bryan and Reigns took turns doing one-on-ones. Basically, it started out with Edge and Bryan, and then it became, I think, Bryan and Reigns, and they essentially kept Reigns out as much as possible because he's Reigns. Reigns at one point power bombed Bryan through. Oh, that was so good. Reigns was going to powerbomb Bryan through the announce table, and he decided that because the crowd were booing him so vigorously, he just decided he was going to wait a second, and then he looked at them and then just did it anyway. That was beautiful. Just awesome. Reigns hit a spear on... Edge hit a spear on on Reigns, but Bryan pulled the referee out of the ring. That was towards the finish, to be honest. Bryan hit a running knee. Bryan hit a diving headbutt on both men, which I'm never a massive fan of seeing a diving headbutt because Chris Benoit's my favourite wrestler of all time. Although Walter is becoming my favourite wrestler of all time. We'll talk about that in the NXT review if I get that up at some point. Bryan did the kicks as well to both men. Edge hit the execution on Roman Reigns for a near fall. Reigns hit the Superman punch on Edge, I believe. But in the end, Reigns, after as well, this was really good. After Reigns powerbombed Bryan through the table, he was posing on the top of the steps, and Edge speared him off the steps to the floor, which was really good. And Edge's spear looks much better than it ever did. I will say that. I'm not a massive fan of it. And there was a moment where they did it. They did that spot. The Goldberg-Reigns spot I always wanted to see, where basically Reigns and Edge at the same point, they bounced off the ropes and both just went for a spear and both just collided with each other's shoulders. That was super. I've never seen it. I'll probably never see it again. Super spot, really clever. But the finish came, as I said, when Bryan pulled the ref out of the ring, that dastardly heel, Daniel Bryan, who was by far the favourite for the fans. Edge got a massive reaction when he came out, I think because of his pyro. When the match actually went on, it wasn't like he was booed. Reigns was vociferously booed, which is great because he is the heel. But yeah, no. Reigns was infuriated by Daniel pulling out the referee. He brought 3 chairs in the ring. He put one underneath Bryan's head. He put one underneath Reigns' head, and he hit Bryan with the concerto. And he went to do it to Roman, but just as he was going to do it, and by the way, all this time Bryan is just convulsing on the floor, like it was mental. It was absolutely mental. Bryan was like convulsing. He stole the concerto like almost terrifyingly good. As Edge went to hit the concerto on Reigns, Jey Uso came out and he fought Roman, and then Roman destroyed Jey with a chair. He turned around, he took a spear from Roman. Roman placed Edge's head on the chair, gave him the concerto, threw the chair out the ring, placed Edge on top of Bryan, but so his shoulders were on the mat as well, so Edge was not pinning Bryan, because you can't pin someone if your shoulders are on the mat too, and pinned both men in the main event of Mania to retain his Universal title. I thought that was a spectacular finish. I thought it was outstanding. I could not have booked it better. In my opinion, I would have gone with Reigns winning. So this was the cherry on top of the cake. Edge didn't need another world title run. He's 48 or whatever he is. Bryan probably didn't either. This is Roman Reigns' best run in the company by a landslide. He's a fantastic heel. The crowd booed when he won because he's a heel, not because he's Roman Reigns, because he's a pushed heel. And he's an awesome worker. All 3 men worked super hard in this match. Bryan was fantastic. Edge was fantastic. Reigns was great. So this was a fantastic Mania main event. Triple threat matches at Mania in the main event. Never cease to amaze. I'm going to give this 4.5 stars. I thought this was fantastic. I thought this was the best match on either night, even though I probably have a bit of a soft spot for that Bianca Belair match. Because it had a happy ending, but this finish was unbelievably brilliant. But yeah, Reigns holds up his belt and the show cuts to black. And that was a WrestleMania 37 Night 2. The whole weekend is done. WrestleMania week is done. I guess we've got Raw and stuff, but I'm not as bothered about that. You know, there might be some debuts and Cole might come up, or whoever, Bronson Reed or Gargano or Ciampa or whatever could come up. But, you know, this 2 nights of WrestleMania, this night ended superbly. Almost the same way that the first night did. You know, and the actual wrestling across the board on this show, I would argue, was better. You know, the first 2 matches, especially the Orton Fiend match, were abysmal. Okay? The first match was god-awful. The second match wasn't very good. But from there, Zayn and Owens had a really good match. I thought it was a great match with Sheamus and Matt Riddle. You know, Cruz and Biggie tried really, really hard for the time they got. They just didn't get enough time. And then Rhea Ripley and Asuka had a very, very good match. So, you know, what was that? 2, 3 3/4, a 4-star. 2, 3 3/4, a 4-star, a 3-star, and a 4.5. So, and then the beginning too. So, in the end, I'm torn because the first night made me feel like a fan, because obviously the babyface won, and you know, she won in the main event, and you know, there was a few things in that show that were pretty boring. The Strowman match was pretty boring. The women's tag turmoil was awful. And you know, I'm trying to think what else was on the first night. You know, the Bobby Lashley finish was a bit mundane and a bit silly, and God, what else happened on night 1? The Cesaro Seth Rollins wrestling match was really good. The AJ stuff with Omos was alright, and what else was on the first night? It's been so long already. All the Bad Bunny stuff, and totally forgot the Bad Bunny match. Yeah, you know, there was better wrestling on night 2 in the end, even though night 1 made me feel more like a fan because it was essentially babyface wins almost the whole way through. Except for the opener, and you could argue the tag team turnaround match, even though they became faces on this show, or were at least faces in this match. And even Omos was a babyface, really. The psychology of that tag was backwards. Yeah, I'm going to say the wrestling on this show was much better. As I said, 4-star, 2, 3 3/4, 3 stars, and then a 4.5. Fantastic, I would say, classic Mania main event. I'm going to give the show, I think I gave it 7.5 to night 1. I'm going to give this one an 8. I think it was better in the end. Brilliant main event. Awesome finish. Like, this show made me feel perhaps not like a fan, because there wasn't a lot of babyface wins, because, you know, Orton won, and the heels won in the tag match, and Cruz won, which I was happy with, obviously, and Sheamus won, and even though that was a great fight, and Rhea Ripley won, even though she's not a heel, really, she's a tweener, and Roman Reigns won, which made me so happy. You know, there wasn't a lot of babyface wins, but from, like, a critical standpoint, this show was better. It was booked really well outside of that first match. So, thanks for watching, guys. 8 out of 10. Really, really good Mania tonight. Really, really good 2 nights overall. And you're going to have to see how I feel they stand up against the excellence of NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver. It's actually closer than you'd think, I'd say. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. This has been Rob Russell. Like, comment, subscribe for more. I know this video has been long. I apologise. It's all spontaneous. It all just comes out. I apologise for talking about the Fiend match as long as I did. What were your thoughts on this show? What did you think to Roman pinning both men in the main event? What do you think to Nigerian Prince winning the IC title? What do you think to Babatunde returning to television? What do you think to Rhea Ripley winning the Raw Women's title? Do you think we've got a new, almost like kind of a new era for women's wrestling on the main roster, with Rhea and Bianca winning the titles? What do you think to the, what I would call, abysmal Fiend match? Did you like it? Did you not? Please let me know. Thanks for watching, guys. This has been Revolver Wrestlemania.